Okay, it's time for Jess, who is a integrative menstrual health coach specializing in PMDD, and that's why I asked her to come talk with us. And we're going to talk all about what is the non-negotiable for your PMDD symptom management. We're going to talk about body literacy, and we're going to talk about what it really takes to have hormone health. And oh my gosh, I cannot wait because she really has so much information, so much knowledge that is essential for our PMDD symptom management. Here we go, Jess. Here I come. Welcome to the PMDD Healing Summit, where the world's top experts share hope, guidance, and next steps for your PMDD healing journey. And right now, right here, y'all can already see Jess is here, and I am super happy to be speaking with Jess and to introduce you to her because Jess is a period educator, integrative menstrual health coach, and fertility awareness method instructor who specializes in PMDD. That's why she's here. Yay. She is also the lead menstruator at her Mood Mentor, where she works both one-on-one and in group settings to empower, educate, and support menstruators in healing hormonal imbalances and PMDD. Her practice is rooted in the belief that the body has an innate capacity to heal. And she believes that a lack of cycle awareness, education, and training in symptom management tools is hindering individuals to cope with the natural, monthly biological process of their menstruation. That's so juicy. Thank you, Jess, for being here.
Thank you for having me, Charisma. I'm so happy to be here.
I'm so happy to have you here. And we're going to dig into all of these things right here because that's so needed what you're offering, Jess. So could you share a little bit about your own journey and why you're so passionate about supporting us here in the PMDD community?
Yeah. So like so many other people that are going to be here and who have experienced PMDD, it's not a happy or short story, but I'll try to keep it concise. So I started experiencing PMDD at menarche, which is the first period that we have. And so, everybody has a different experience with it coming on, but mine was there from the start. And my mom began taking me to physicians around age 13, age 14 to get help because she recognized that my response to my period was abnormal. And of course, I had the same experience that a lot of you all have, where I was put on hormonal contraceptives at an early age, misdiagnosed as bipolar, put on anti-psychotics, SSRIs, the whole gamut, cycled through many physicians until I finally just kind of gave up. There was a lot of confusion. Even though from the beginning I knew there was a link to my period, I think I was in denial because for a long time there, I just couldn't put it together. It's all consuming, as you know. So it got really bad again. I went back to physicians. I was put again on hormonal contraceptives. And unfortunately, there is the possibility that hormonal contraceptives can exacerbate your PMDD. That happened to me, and I hit rock bottom at that point. That was in 2016, 17, when I was around 27, 28 years old. I lost my partner, I lost my job, I became increasingly suicidal, and my physician told me to just keep on the medication and it would take a while to regulate. And at that point in that experience, something snapped inside me and it was like, okay, I'm either going to die because of this, or I'm going to find another way. And staying on that hormonal contraceptive was a really disturbing suggestion that my physician at the time offered me. So I decided to kind of step away from those approaches in allopathic medicine and working more in the integrative world. And so I went to school. I started researching and spent the next 4 years completely transforming my PMDD experience and my life. And within 3 months on that path, I had the first symptom-free period I ever had. Now, I'm not saying that to gloat or to make anyone have negative emotion. I'm saying that because that's possible. That doesn't mean that I don't have PMDD. That doesn't mean that I don't still manage it and deal with it. But having dealt with debilitating cycles for 17 years and then having one without symptoms was like, what? That is even possible. And so once that happened, everything changed. And I committed to this path, and I went back to school and, built my protocol and all of this. So that's why I'm here. And I'm here to spread hope to people because there are other ways to manage. And there's, a lot of hope for healing.
Yay. Thank you for sharing your story. What a journey. And it's this thing, I'm so happy that you had that awareness to just keep going, wait, there has to be something else. I have to now find this. I'm so glad that you had that kind of shift where you're like, okay, screw all this. I'm going to take this into my own hands. And that's why I'm so happy about, doing the summit, because there's so many different ways that work for different people. But I hope that people hear that they, find inspiration to say, okay, let me check that out. Let me check out what Jess is talking about, what Jess has to offer, what Jess is sharing with us here. So let's dive right in, Jess, because I love your Instagram. It's just like the best place ever to just hang out and just like scroll without having a guilty conscience. You say that body literacy is a necessary component of managing our PMDD symptoms. Could you explain a little bit what you mean by body literacy?
Body literacy. This is a non-negotiable in my protocol, and I feel like should be in a non-negotiable in people understanding their bodies, in sex education. Unfortunately, that's not happening. So there are two parts to body literacy. There's just basic education, learning basic biology and physiology and how your body works. So, I do this specifically with cycle awareness because that's a kind of first step with managing PMDD, but we can also talk about body literacy and all of the body systems. It's not just specifically cycle awareness, body literacy, but the second component of body literacy is about observing, learning, and understanding your body. So kind of taking the information that comes from this is how a human body works, and then comparing with your specific data, what's happening in your body, because through that approach, you're able to target body systems that are undermining your symptom presentation, specifically with PMDD. So this is not super easy. You have to have education, and then you have to take action as far as observing, monitoring, and tracking. Specifically with PMDD management, I'm talking about your cycle tracking. So there's like cycle tracking, and then there's symptom mapping. And cycle tracking, we pretty much all do. Like my period started on this day and ended on this day. But as far as body literacy and cycle awareness with PMDD, I like to do what's called symptom mapping, which is where you are mapping out when your symptoms are presenting and the severity of those symptoms, because, each symptom is a message. And this is like the nitty gritty of my protocol here, because we need a new language of symptom empowerment. And when you start to understand body literacy, you start to understand that, these symptoms that are so debilitating and so just disruptive to my life are actually the only way my body can communicate to me that underlying body systems are dysregulated, right? Your body can't send you a DM or a text like, BTW, you're not sleeping enough, so I can't produce hormones normally, or a number of other things. So from getting that actual, education and then pairing it with your cycle data, you're able to say, okay, well, I'm having, breast tenderness. Well, that points to 3 potential underlying body system dysregulations, and then we can work with that. And so this is a whole different way of approaching the cycle and our PMDD, but it kind of starts with just having that body literacy education, the 2 parts to that.
Oh, wow. So it's my body sending me a direct message, sending me a signal that something's up. So that's kind of what I can then dive deeper into. So I like that, just cycle tracking, but also symptom mapping. I hope y'all are writing this stuff down, and you can start just writing down, what are my symptoms? Because for me, it is breast tenderness. That's when I kind of know, I'm going to start also then slowly afterwards. I notice, now I'm starting to feel more annoyed about things. I get a little more tense in my jaw. Things annoy me a little more. And so I can then kind of see what's really going on. So is that kind of also how you work with people? You have them map their symptoms and then y'all dive into each and every symptom?
Yeah, I do kind of a whole combined approach between the education and working one-on-one. So that's the biggest takeaway that I want people to have from this is just like, this is a root cause approach. This is, we're not altering your physiology with a medication to treat a symptom. We are working at the underlying causes of hormone dysregulation, which are body system related. So we need to look at your HPT, your HPO, and your, yeah, I know I'm getting a little too scientific maybe, but there are, you can think of your hormonal system as a stool. Okay. And you have these different, communications going on between your brain and your body. And because we don't have a saliva, a urine, a blood or genetic test for PMDD, we don't exactly know how persistent of a case of PMDD you have. Yeah. So working with these root causes, regardless of how persistent your case is, will help not only your overall health, but specifically help support your reproductive system. And you have to address those axes. You have to address just the base. I like to use the analogy of like, okay, well, if you want to grow a vegetable garden, you can't just have a seed. You have to have a seed, a healthy seed. You have to have healthy soil. You have to have healthy water. You have to have healthy sunshine. And so we're working with a body that is a complex system that's interacting with a lot of other complex systems. And so it's kind of a first principle thing. We can't just go like, oh, that's a symptom. Here's some hormonal growth control to shut down your reproductive. Your reproductive system. Right. That works for some people, but if it doesn't, then you're in this place where you're just like, I'm broken. There's no other options for me. And, I have to live with this just unmanaged forever. And that's a lie. That's just a lie. We need to zoom out and we need to look more in depth at what these symptoms are telling us, because, it's easy to be victimized by them when it's happening over and over and trauma is building up. But when you can kind of use that new language of symptom empowerment and body literacy and cycle awareness to start to learn, my body is actually telling me something really important, and shift to maybe even being grateful that your body is communicating to you, because then it gives you kind of a pressure point of like, okay, this is exactly what I need to work on. If I'm dealing with breast tenderness, that's pointing to, a food sensitivity. That's pointing to, an underlying nutrient deficiency. That's just giving us all of these clues. We know that caffeine impacts fibrocystic breast tissue. We know that, not having enough iodine is a nutrient deficiency that's related in breast tenderness. We know that if you are not being really careful with your exposure to endocrine disrupting chemicals, that you're going to have a hormone imbalance that's going to lead to breast tenderness. So there's just like so much to work with there.
Wow. Amazing. Now when I have my breast tenderness, I'm going to be thinking about you. Thank you. So that's some of the work that you do. You go to that root cause approach. And so it's like underlying the symptoms, what's beneath that. And you were talking about hormones a little bit. And now I know you have like these core 7 things, or could you share a little bit about how we can, what are some core areas of our hormone health?
Sure. So I teach and I coach through the same model of body literacy and the 7 core areas of hormone health. That's like my protocol. Yeah. And so the 7 core areas of hormone health, this is again, just a kind of basic, that biological equation we talked about before. Nutrition, if you don't have proper nutrition, and that there's a lot of things underlying nutrition, but if you're not eating regularly, if your blood sugar isn't balanced, if you're exposed to anti-nutrients, if you're, have a food sensitivity, your reproductive system is not going to be functioning optimally. So nutrition, sleep, same kind of thing there. Lots of factors impacting that, lots of things we can do around that. But if you're not sleeping, your hormones are not going to be functioning properly. Movement is another core area. Environment, that's where we really get into endocrine disrupting chemical exposure, but also the comfort and safety and how you feel in your physical environment. Resilience, which is all about stress. Modulation is another core area. We have to work to regulate the nervous system if you want your hormones to function properly. And then also a little bit more esoteric, relationships is a core area. We all deal with relationship struggles. So I do a lot of education and work in that area with people, but then also spirituality, which is, a more confusing, more ethereal way to relate to your cycle. But we've been using the menstrual cycle as a spiritual tool for as long as humans have existed. And there's a lot of menstrual mindset and trauma dealing with your menstruation and your menstrual health is related to spirituality. So those are the 7 core areas that we work.
Mind blown, because when I think of hormone health, I'm like, oh yeah, it's like me eating, I don't know, this and keeping but there's so much that goes into it. We're like a whole ecosystem.
Yes.
Oh,
it's complex.
Yes, we're complex and beautiful, beautiful creatures. And you just mentioned something which I also read about on your Instagram page about menstrual mindset. Could you share a little bit about what that is? Because I have never heard that term before.
Yeah. So, there's a lot of things that impact our menstrual mindset, especially when we have PMDD. So first of all, how were you socialized into menstruation? Were you educated by your mother? Did you receive no education? Was it something that you feared coming? Was it something that you were excited about? Did you have trauma when it did come? All of these things impact our current menstrual mindset, among other things. And so kind of paying attention to the automatic negative thoughts we might have around menstruation and PMDD specifically, or if, you're struggling with gender identity and PMDD and menstruating as a part of that, that can be really triggering. I mean, there's a lot of other complex factors involved just with the mentality that goes along with having your period that needs to be addressed, because what happens is, we're either dealing with, and this isn't a scientific term, this is just how I talk about trauma and PMDD. You have premenarche trauma, which is trauma that is from your childhood, that is before you have your first period. And we know that people with childhood trauma or sexual abuse are 6.7 times more likely to experience PMDD. So that could be an underlying cause of your symptom presentation to begin with. So it doesn't matter what supplements you throw, how clean your diet is, how much self-care you do. If you're not dealing with your premenarche trauma, those symptoms are going to continue to present. And so this kind of ties into that spirituality core area. And then there's postmenarche trauma, where a lot of us with PMDD have had these cycles monthly where we experience episodes, PMDD episodes that cause really painful trauma. We lose jobs, we lose friends, we lose relationships. I mean, it's nasty. There's no shortage of terrible, terrible things that happen. So then we start building up this postmenarche trauma. Well, same thing. It doesn't matter how much you sleep, how much you move your body. If you're not dealing with the trauma that has occurred around that issue, unfortunately, the menstrual cycle is kind of like a magnifying glass. It's going to bring that stuff up in the luteal phase. And if you're already dysregulated, it's just going to further throw your nervous system off, and it's just a downward spiral, which is, the thing to take away from that is you can do something about it. bringing awareness to that and getting support, building a collaborative care system of practitioners around you to kind of, help from these different angles, someone specifically helping with trauma, someone like counseling on EMDR, something like that, with an educational component. I mean, you have so many options to manage this. And at the end of the day, that's the most important thing that I want people to take away from any of the work that I do, is that this is not hopeless. Mm-hmm. There are endless modalities and endless angles to approach this disorder from. Yes. And you don't have two options. You have more options than I can talk about in this interview,
Absolutely. Thank you for bringing that up, that, pre-menarche trauma and then the post when we're already in, that makes so much sense because yes, there's so much trauma that comes up with us having PMDD and all the things that happen that needs to be worked on as well. And I love that you're saying that we need to work on that, and all the supplements, all the stuff that we do will not really help if we're not also working on that. So if somebody is like, whoa, I want to explore that, how do people start? Should they start looking for somebody, or can they start like with a journaling, or what would you do for them to just start seeing if there's something there?
Yeah. So I think starting with building cycle awareness and that body literacy. So you can do that without receiving the education. You can start symptom mapping. I have a free download for that. You can do this on your app. Like there's other ways to do it. You don't have to use my specific, sheet, but if you're tracking when your symptoms are arising, what those specific symptoms are and what their severity is, and you start to bring more attention to your triggers, and to what is setting those symptoms off, you're automatically going to start building this awareness and start seeing kind of, usually there's a theme. And usually people have a few things that set them off that come up over and over, month after month, not feeling respected, not, feeling like they're supported, not, lots of little things like they're doing all the work and no one's helping them. There's so many triggers that we all have, right? They're going to be different. But as you start to bring attention to what your symptoms are, how severe they are, and kind of what's triggering them, you're going to start to connect the dots a little bit naturally.
Beautiful. So true. Just start with that body literacy, start with that symptom mapping, and things will start opening up. I absolutely agree. I think that was part of my path too. I was just like, what is this thing? Why do I think this? And I just started going down the rabbit hole and doing hypnosis for inner child healing and for emotionally abusive mothers and all this stuff like that. And it just started unraveling. So let's get a little nerdy, because I really love that you're really scientific and you got the really good, juicy information. And on your blog, and I'm gonna read this quote because I thought it was so interesting. Adaptogens can be a great tool for creating more mental and physical balance by supporting the body through those hormonal changes. So what are adaptogens, and which ones should we be considering if we have PMDD?
Sure. Yeah. So adaptogens are powerful herbs that are used medicinally, specifically that help with stress modulation and cortisol levels. So kind of when we look at system dysregulation overall, we usually want to look at inflammation in the body and nervous system dysregulation. Yeah. And so adaptogens help with both of those factors. And, resilience is a core area of hormone health in my practice, and stress is related to that. And we all know stress massively can exacerbate your symptom presentation. So kind of I like to get away from the mentality of what can I take to cure my PMDD, and kind of shift mindsets again to what can I do to improve my quality of life with this disorder? Because we don't have a cure. And at the end of the day, that's really not super productive to focus on. What we really want deep down is to improve our quality of life. So what can I do? That puts, the ball in your court, where, a lot of this work is to separate the victimization that happens with PMDD, where, you're victimized by this disorder, and kind of shift the power dynamic to, I'm taking responsibility for the way that this is impacting me. This is not in control of me, and creating a distance there between I'm uniquely flawed as a human being because I have a reproductive mood disorder, to, taking all of these components with body literacy and cycle awareness, like this is how my body is reacting to the natural fluctuation of estrogen and progesterone. And there's likely some underlying reproductive health issues contributing to that. So what can I do to reduce its impact on my quality of life? And something that you can do is use tools, both tools that you consume in a drug form or a supplement form or an herb form. But there's other tools too that are free that you can use as well. But adaptogens are a great tool for modulating stress and to working at reducing adrenal insufficiency, and to just kind of help you kind of balance out. What we ultimately want to do is trigger that parasympathetic nervous system that's calming, and we can use relaxation response tools to do this, but it's also really helpful to use adaptogens. So things like holy basil or tulsi, two different names for the same thing.
I love tulsi.
Yeah, an ancient, amazing herb that you can administer regularly. It's tasty, and it really will help you with a stress modulation. Again, it doesn't really matter how much tulsi tea you drink if you're not sleeping or moving your body or eating appropriately. But if you have all those other things in place, and then you kind of start to add in these powerful adaptogens, it can make a huge difference. Ashwagandha is another powerful, helpful adaptogen with, managing stress and PMDD. There's so many. And some people, you always want to check with your physician before you start a herbal protocol, because these are powerful tonics and they can interfere with medications potentially. And if you're breastfeeding or pregnant, you want to be careful because some of the herbs are not recommended to use during those times. But so many options. Again, I'm just coming back to. Yes.
Yes. Experiment, see, check it out. But I love that, because tulsi, I just love the way it tastes, but I didn't know, that it also naturally helps me with my nervous system. So, and the stress, my cortisol. So that is really good to know. Thank you for sharing that. And here's something that's kind of on a tangent a little bit, but I am so interested because you're a fertility awareness method instructor. And, we're kind of talking about maybe that the pill isn't, doesn't work for everybody with PMDD. So maybe they don't want to have hormonal birth control. Is this something that they could use as birth control? Tell us more about this FAM.
Yeah, so there are a lot of different kind of ways to approach fertility awareness. There are different methods, but it is practiced correctly just as effective as taking the pill. And so, if you're using the pill for hormonal contraceptive, that's one thing. But if you're just using the pill to manage your PMDD, that's kind of an off-label use. And I just want to point out, it can exacerbate your symptoms. And unfortunately, that's not something that physicians generally are screening for or aware of. Yeah. There are, 10 different types of progesterone that inhibit and kind of bind to different hormones in the body, and it can be bad news. So that's just something you want to, again, do symptom mapping to monitor your effects on that. Approach if you decide to use hormonal contraceptive. But it's not the only way to avoid pregnancy. And the thing with the fertility awareness method is, again, you are getting really deep there with that education into your physiology, your biological process. And so you can use these fertility biomarkers to just give you an overall reading of your reproductive health. So in 2015, as you probably know, the American Academy of Pediatrics and the American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists named the menstrual cycle the fifth vital sign. So that means your menstrual cycle is just as important as things like your body temperature, your respiratory rate, the other major markers of whether or not you're alive and well. So you can use fertility awareness to take that body literacy to a deeper level by tracking your cervical fluid, by, paying attention to the length of your luteal phase. And a lot of times what happens is people who are dealing with PMDD have an abnormal progesterone curve, or they have a deficiency in progesterone. And so you can see that by looking at these fertility biomarkers, seeing whether or not you're ovulating with tracking your cervical fluid, and also taking your basal body temperature daily. But if you have a short luteal phase, if you're spotting a couple of days before your bleed starts, that's indicating that you have an issue with progesterone. And, we can look at all of this data and we can kind of start to use all of that information again to apply to managing your PMDD. So choose your own adventure. You can go as deep down this rabbit hole as you want.
Yes. Like Frodo, go on your own adventure. So I absolutely love everything that you've been sharing. And I know everybody out there is like, how can I work with Jess? Because this woman, she has all the knowledge, all the research. She knows what's going on at the root cause of all my stuff. How can people work with you? Share a little bit about how they can do that.
Sure. Well, first of all, I'm not pretending to know everything. I'm doing my best, just like all of you. But yeah, I'm here for you all, and I am happy to have come out on the other side of this with a positive story rather than the alternative. So I do one-to-one integrative menstrual health coaching. I do group coaching, and then I have a self-paced 100% online program called PMDD Rehab, where I walk you through the 7 core areas. I give you a menstrual health 101 module, and with specifics to PMDD, it's all PMDD related because that's what I specialize in. But there is that educational component that you can work through as well. Of course, I like it when people choose to do both, because then you get the support in making the behavior change around these core areas and the issues that you're specifically dealing with. But I also think that the educational component is kind of like, why are you going to make those changes if you don't know why you're making them and you can't really connect the dots?
Oh, I love that. PMDD Rehab. I mean, such a good name. Thank you so much. And I also want to mention that, y'all, if you are feeling cold, Jess has given us such a beautiful, beautiful free mini course training called Transform PMDD, Reclaim Your Life. Free. The link is going to be most likely underneath the video. And Jess, that sounds so awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. You're so sweet.
Yeah, I'm gonna download it to myself and check it out. Thank you so much for sharing that, y'all. Definitely download that. Get the details from Jess. Start reclaiming your life. Mm-hmm. So we're at time. Thank you so much. Do you have any last words of encouragement or hope for our peeps with PMDD out there?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like a broken record, but the hope aspect is the whole reason I'm doing what I'm doing. I was hopeless. I was in a really dark place with this, where I thought I tried everything, and I, thought I understood my options. And at the end of the day, I had no idea what was going on. I didn't know how my body worked. I didn't know, what systems even made up my reproductive health. I couldn't even accurately describe my external reproductive anatomy, and so there is so much hope for you to take control over this. And, I'm not talking about disappearing your symptoms. I'm talking about you getting skills, getting tools to manage these symptoms and reduce them. That's what we're talking about here. So lots of options. Don't let anyone make you feel like you don't have options, because that's a lie, and you might want to find a different practitioner.
Empowering words. Yes, you have options out there. Always remember that. Rewatch this one right here. Get your notebook out, download the beautiful freebie that Jess has given us, and share in the Facebook group, hashtag gold nugget, whatever came up for you, your aha breakthrough moment right here, because I know there's going to be a lot of those. Thank you so much, Jess. Thank you.
Oh, thank you for having me, Chrisma.
Oh, all right, y'all, get out of here. Bye.